Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Luis speaking, Luis Magalhães. I am a dental coach. As a dental coach, I help dentists be their best selves and improve their careers. So I do this through the use of my coaching framework. I'm going to talk a bit about that. Alright, so when I was in dental school, in anatomy class, we had some pretty tough exams, oral exams. And when we were struggling with the exams, my teacher had the habit of asking a very easy question to help prod us along. One of his favorite questions was, at what temperature boils water? Now, this being Europe, we used Celsius degrees, and most people know that it's pretty obviously at 100 degrees. But at one time, a student that was particularly desperate shouted, 90, 90, 90 degrees, professor. And that was laughs all around. But actually, was he that wrong? Because if we go to the top of a mountain, we will see that water boils at 90 degrees due to the variations in pressure. Now, why is this important for our talk today? Because it helps us understand that sometimes the things that we take for unchanging and constant are actually a matter of perspective. Now, once one of my teachers told me, if you want to improve it, you should measure it. If you don't measure it, it will never get improved. And I took this advice to heart in my career and later as I developed my coaching vocabulary and took on coaching courses. But there are things that are harder to measure, I admit. Knowledge for all our IQ tests and standardized tests, and especially when it comes to self-knowledge, we're not really that good at knowing how to measure it. We are not that good at measuring emotions nor relationships, but this does not mean that they are impossible to measure. Now, if we try to think too hard about this, it will be unpleasant, but let's just keep this in mind. The fact that we are not aware of a system and mechanism does not mean that it isn't there, working in the background. You might associate measurements with mechanical stuff or with scientific research, but our minds always have a structure, our minds have mechanics. So actually, the subjects that I talked about earlier, your actions and improvements on these various areas can and should be measurable, repeatable meaning that if you do an action and it has a certain effect, you should expect that repeating that action will give the same or similar effect in the same context, and even timed. You can rely upon the fact that if you keep doing a mental exercise, for example meditation, every day for a certain period of time, the way that your mind works will be affected. So this kind of thing, the mind has been studying it for a long time, actually, in ancient Greece by philosophers such as Seneca, Aristotle, or Marcus Aurelius, and in more recent times by psychologists such as Dr. Sigmund Freud and Erickson. I'm particularly a fan of Erickson, which has influenced a lot my coaching practice. So, in my coaching practice, I've adopted a method called the tabula rasa. This is partially of my own authorship, but based upon some mentors and teachers that I've had upon their ideas. And the thing about tabula rasa is that it means clean slate in English. And I like it because I like to think that when I'm starting to work with a person, we can work from a clean slate. Now, this methodology of learning, of coaching, is very centered in establishing aims or goals. And why is this? Well, it has to do with something called your reticular activation system, which influences and interacts with your focus. If you've ever picked up a personal development book, one of the most common, the most famous ones are the ones from Anthony Robbins. You have probably come across the reticular activation system. The purpose of this system is to help you see what you are looking for. Sounds simple, right? Well, let's have a look at the video that exemplifies it perfectly. Now, this is an awareness test.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
It is indeed very easy to miss something that you're not looking for. So I've seen this video so many times that I see the bear right at the start, but I'm pretty sure that first timers will have been surprised. And a dancing bear, pretty obvious thing. By the way, as a curiosity, the reticular activation system is way more developed in women versus men. This is why the ladies are always giving us a hard time about not being able to juggle nearly enough things. So, what happens with focus and its relationship to the reticular activated system? Well, when we focus on something, let's say buying a new car. Okay, so maybe we're trying to gather enough money to buy it. Maybe we've just bought it, and suddenly we see it everywhere. We didn't used to see this car so much, but now, oh look, everyone has a car like mine, or like the one I intend to buy, sometimes even the same color. If you've already thought about having children, you probably started seeing a lot more pregnant ladies, a lot more children around. And when you're really, really sick, it's very important for you to get distracted, because if you focus on your sickness, you're going to feel a lot worse, and your family is going to feel a lot worse if it focuses on your sickness. So this is why things like video games, for example, have such great therapeutical applications, or why it's so nice to have clowns visit an hospital, because it gets people's minds off, it gets people's focus off their illness. And paradoxically, that helps them get better. So, a goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. These are two words that I'm going to focus a lot in this presentation: goal and aim. Think about it. Maybe if you have a dartboard in front of you, if you throw a dart without looking, maybe you can hit it, but you're as likely to not hit it. If you focus on the center of the target, maybe you won't hit the center, but you're much more likely to hit the target. How does this relate to dental medicine anyway? Well, there are a couple of applications. This framework can be applied to career planning and to doctor-patient relations. Now, for this presentation, I'm going to focus on career. That's what I'm here for, but maybe on a later presentation, we'll come back to doctor-patient relations. Okay, so back to tabula rasa. Rasa is actually a mnemonic. It stands for reality, aim, solutions, and action. Let's have a closer look at this. Reality is about you being aware of where you are at. You've probably heard the saying, in order to know where you're going, you need to look at where you are at. This is the point of this exercise. When I say that reality comes first, it means that you should be honest with yourself about a couple of things. Remember we talked about measuring. Well, now it's time to be brutally honest, measure what are your strengths and what are your growth opportunities, the things you're not so good at and you can improve. And besides, think about it, if you think about it like a video game, for example, maybe for more casual people, a game like Farmville on Facebook, or for more hardcore people, a game like an RPG on a computer, characters have stats. Think of this as your stats, the things that you're good at, the things that you're not so good at, the things you can see improving, the things you can see not improving so much. Have a good, deep sense, put it to paper of where you are at as a dental professional. And then also figure out what makes you tick. Okay? I am a dental professional. How can my job contribute towards a more fulfilling life? Some people just enjoy doing good work. They are happy with that. Other people, they want to work so they can build a big pile of cash where they can swim on. Others, they want to provide for their families. Even others just want to have a work that allows them for a healthy lifestyle. And some find great pleasure in working with a motivated, like-minded team. Or maybe something else completely different, or maybe a bit of column A, column B, column C, column D. It's up to you. You really need to figure this out on yourself. It's not up to me or up to anyone to tell you what is your position on this, but you really should figure it out. Because, again, in order to go somewhere, you need to know what's your starting point. Knowing this is going to be very, very helpful in future planning for your career. Measure it, be honest. Make sure that you have a degree on your own personal scale, which is the worst as possible, and also one that is very, very good. Don't be, super humble and say that, I'm just starting my career, I'm bad at everything. That's not true. If you look back, you can see some things that you are great at. And also don't be, super alpha, super confident and I'm great at everything. No, there's probably some stuff that you could stand to improve. So let's talk about aims. Your aims are basically your desires. You need to ask yourself, what do you want? What do I want out of my dental practice? You see, this is something that constantly surprises me about people. They finish their dental course and then they start working and they have no reason why. That's just something that they felt they were supposed to do, and they don't stop to think about where they want to be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. Remember, dental medicine is a tool. It exists to allow you to help people, sure, but it also exists to help you attain your desires. So you need to have them. You need to know what you are working for. Otherwise, you'll just be working for working's sake. And some people find that highly satisfactory. Some people do, in fact, derive quite a bit of happiness from working for work's sake, but not all people do. I can't accept that the whole class, that my whole audience, it thinks like that. So, how do you properly define your aim? Well, let's use a sub-framework. Let's open a parenthesis here and talk about the Meta Plus. Sorry, I lapsed into my Portuguese there. The Meta Plus framework. So, an aim should be measurable, quantifiable. You can, for example, say that in each appointment, I want to treat X tooth. Each week, I want to treat X patients. Each month, I want to build X tall pile of cash, like a 10-foot tall pile of cash, not a 9-foot tall, 10-foot tall. You need to be exact. Again, 10-foot tall, not 9-foot tall. 20 patients, 50 patients this week. You need to know exactly what you want. Remember, measuring is the name of the game. Timing stuff. 50 patients, seeing 50 patients, treating 50 patients to a degree of satisfaction in a week. For me, it's pretty good. For you, maybe you're Superman. Maybe you can do 100. Maybe you're not as experienced. Maybe 25 is good for you. But 25 across a day, a week, or a month, totally different. Lastly, well, almost lastly, it needs to be actionable, you know? Your aim should not depend wholly on other people, only minimally, about 20% on other people. Of course, if patients don't arrive at the clinic you work, you don't really have a chance of doing the amount of treating the amount of patients that you like to treat. That's understandable, but you can be ready. You know, that's your part. That is the actionable part. It's being ready to treat those patients. If they come, you will be there for them. Okay, you have a plan. Finally, you should be positive about this stuff. You know, don't be super neurotic. I know I can be. I have been at times when I was younger. Don't be super neurotic about it. Find stuff that challenges you. It's important to have a bit of challenge, but don't go over the top in a way that makes it feel that it's impossible to reach. Otherwise, you'll just end like this little guy. Now, solutions. This is the most challenging phase of the framework. Solutions are the path for where we want to go, are the path to reach our goals, our aim. You've probably heard of this phase in one form or another. Some people call it brainstorming. Now, what you want to do is, once you settle on your objective, what do you want for your practice as a dental professional, you need to ask the question, what will get me there? What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? Do I need to go get some insights from foreign practices? Do I need to try new things? Maybe I look into the past, into the history of dental practice for ideas. Don't do one of these things, do all of these, and as many as you can remember. You know, try to draw on as many ideas as you can, because this will feed into your reticular activation system, and as you are immersed in these ideas, you will start incubating new ideas and solutions. So you understand the concept of incubation here. There's a story that I like to tell. It's the story about the golden crown of King Euro of Syracuse. He gave a craftsman, a well-known craftsman, a solid block of gold so he would craft a crown for him. And when the king got his crown back, he liked it, but he thought, okay, I gave you a lot of gold, a solid block of gold. And this crown, it doesn't really look like it has all this gold. So did you dilute the gold? Did you make an alloy? Did you steal some of the gold for yourself? But the thing is that they hadn't figured out how to measure the volume of irregular solids at this time. So the king asked all the sages in the kingdom to go to him to help him solve this problem, to see if the craftsman was being honest. And it turned out that no one could solve this problem. But one tried a lot. He was called Archimedes. So, as the legend goes, Archimedes bust his brain out for a long time on this problem, and when he was exhausted, he decided, what the heck, I'm going to go have a nice warm bath. And as he was going into the bathtub, he noticed that as his body got in, the water level rose, and as his body got out, the water level fell. And then he had this special moment where he cried, "Eureka!" and went running to the king's castle naked, fresh from the bath. What he figured out, of course, was that the difference in the water level was proportional to the volume of his body that he submerged, and thus he figured out how to measure the volume of irregular bodies. Now, I'm telling you this story not because I want you to know how the discovery of the measurement of irregular bodies was made. I want you to understand that while he was headbutting against the wall on the problem, he did not get there. However, once he got to a moment of relaxation, all his previous effort paid off because he had immersed himself in ideas, and those ideas were left incubating in his mind. So do that. Don't despair if it looks that you have an aim and then solutions don't pop up. Just write down or talk to your iPhone while it's recording, or talk to your cat. Just get as many ideas as possible and trust that the wheels in your brain are turning. Finally, let's talk about action. Because none of this, in the end, none of this is worth anything if you don't act on it. You need to decide on your first small step. Once you have a solution, it might not be the perfect solution, but once you have a good enough amount of ideas, pick one and try to figure out what is the first smallest possible step to follow up on that solution. For example, if I'm feeling okay, I'm not doing that great in talking to patients, I might decide that I might talk to one of my colleagues, to a colleague that I know that does very great. Patients love him. So what am I going to do? What is my plan? I'm going to invite him out for lunch. So the first small step would be call him and invite him out for lunch. And then, later, another day before the lunch, you can figure out some questions that you'd like to ask him, etc., etc. But take it small. As one of my favorite writers put, it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Bilbo, of course, he set out on an adventure to pick some locks, open some doors, and he ended up being part in the killing of a dragon. So you never know where that first small step will take you, but it will probably be quite far. Remember, the previous rules apply. Be specific on your action, Be like, oh, I'll talk to my colleague sometime. We'll schedule lunch someday. No. Say, okay, I'm going to talk to my colleague. I'm going to call him at this time. I'm going to schedule the lunch for this date. Okay? And it's always nice to involve, even if your solution is not about taking someone to lunch to learn from them. Do try to involve other people, because having people at your back, gives you a different level of commitment. We always work better. Even the loners, even the lone wolves work better when they know that other people are counting on them. There's nothing like being part of the A team. Now, there's some good news for your career advancement as a dentist. We all know stories of millionaire dentists. Those are the 1%. And you don't need to be the 1%. Maybe you can be. Good luck with that. It's hard as hell. I'm sure I can't. But fortunately, you don't need to be the 1% to be happy. It's pretty much a statistic certainty that the 20% on the top of every profession group perform well enough and earn well enough to live meaningful, happy lives. And 20%, being in the top 20%, that's not that hard. You can do it. You're looking at the presentation about career development, about how to direct your mind towards finding opportunities. People that do that are more precious than one every 5. I wish 1 every 5 person would take the time to study this kind of stuff. So you're on your way to being part of the top 20%. Again, tabula rasa, reality, aim, solutions, and action. Your own work, if you choose to accept it, is to write 1 or 2 paragraphs on this. Decide what's your reality, what are your strengths, weaknesses, what makes you tick, what you really want from your profession in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Come up with some solutions. Solutions, this is usually the hardest phase. Brainstorming is tough. And after I've been at sometimes after a brainstorming session where I came up with 40 solutions, I didn't like any of them. Doesn't matter. They are incubating. Okay, I was immersed on them and they were incubating, and later I got a great solution that I translated to action with one small step. Keep in mind also the virtuous circle that we just talked about. When you have an aim or a goal, you will be focusing on it. Just having a goal and reviewing it every so often will increase your focus. Focus will spin the wheels, the cogs of your reticular activation system, and this in turn will let you see the dancing bear. It will let you find actionable opportunities related to your aim and goals. So this was it. Thank you for watching.